Action 1, Inspiring Action.
Look up, because you never know what you will see. Hi, my name is Shen Ge, and I'm the host of SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show here in Houston, with Action One Media Group support every Thursday night. So, my goal here is to educate the public in terms of space science, space flight, physics, astronomy, etc. You know, all that cool jazz, and occasionally about aliens as well. So STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, art, since that's part of the creative aspect, and mathematics is very, very, very important to me, and I feel like Action One Media's goal is aligned with mine. So together we hope to encourage the knowledge and especially the passion and interest in outer space in our Houston community.
All right, everybody. Another Thursday. October 3rd today, 2019. For those of you who use Julian Gregorian, you know, saying numbers is a lot easier than saying words. Julian Gregorian, or rather Gregorian calendar these days, okay? Which is 365.2425 days as opposed to 365.25 days. Interesting fact. So, which makes the Julian calendar actually 10.8 minutes longer on average. But, okay, random fact aside, so welcome. This is episode number 47, SG2 on Space, here in the Action One Media studio. As you can see behind me, Action One Media, which you can find more information on at www.weareA1.com. For me, hopefully you're listening or watching on youtube.com, and you can search for SG2 in Space, or facebook.com/The Shen Show. Alright, so, and by the way, welcome to questions or commentary. Feel free to either post on Facebook or YouTube while the show is going on, or if you're more bold, you can call. Number is 713-489-9250. That's 713-489-9250. So today I figured I'd talk about some happenings in the commercial space sector. But first of all, let's make some announcements, all right? So let's talk about the upcoming events. Let's start local first of all. October 16th, 2019, there is a space talk event, part of the Thought Leader series that Space Center Houston is holding, and that's Wednesday, October 16th at 1 p.m. or if you miss that, at 7 p.m. Okay, you can go to either one, and there's going to be a number of notable astronauts / cosmonauts there. So there is Helen Sharman, British cosmonaut, NASA astronaut Katie Coleman, JAXA astronaut Koichi Wakata, Romanian cosmonaut Dimitri Dorin Pernaria. All right, and so this will be open to anybody who wants to go. So it should be interesting. So these folks are all part of the Association of Space Explorers, which are basically an organization of astronauts and cosmonauts. Those people who've gone into space. All right, so might be cool. This free event does have limited seating, and admission is included with a general admission ticket. So feel free to go, and you can go to spacecenter.org/event/thought-leader-series SERIES to find out more information. All right, another thing coming up here in Houston, which is pretty cool, is Wings Over Houston 2019. Houston has one of the biggest air shows every year, and this year is no exception. It's on the weekend of October 19th and 20th. I have not decided if I'm going to go. I've gone, a number of times, but so they have all sorts of stunt airplanes flying. They also have a special show at the end always. So this time they have the United States Air Force Thunderbirds, which are folks. So they are. I think it's F-18s actually. No, F-18s is Hornets. This is F-16s. Okay. So yeah, so they're gonna fly, their airplanes, and they are really cool. So it's amazing. And at the same time, or shortly after, there's a Canadian Snowbirds, which also demonstrates their, their air superiority in terms of, their how they maneuver. And there's also going to be a F-35, a Lightning team. All right, and that's F-35A is a U.S. Air Force's latest 5th generation fighter, so that should be pretty cool. All right. If we take a look, also Houston in November 20th and 21st at the George Brown Convention Center, just like every year, has been going on, I think for 3-4 years now. Is SpaceCom 2019. It's the largest space conference here in Houston. So this is actually. Yeah. So anyways, so basically, there's going to be obviously NASA there, Department of Commerce's Office of Space Commerce, Department of Energy's Office of Technology Transitions, and a bunch of commercial space companies are going to be present. Okay, so there's going to be a few major tracks, including Returning to the Moon to Stay, the $1 trillion LEO economy, low Earth orbit economy, cross-industry opportunities, and critical regulatory considerations. So you can see that it's targeted towards the commercial space industry, right? So it'd be quite interesting to go, especially if you're working for a commercial space company and doing, or have your own. All right. Other stuff similar to that, there is outside of Houston this week, so it might be too late to get tickets if you haven't already. Wednesday, October 9th at 8 a.m. all the way to Thursday, October 10th at 5 p.m. So in other words, 2 days. There's a ISPCS 2019. They do this every year. It's the International Symposium for Personal and Commercial Spaceflight. So once again, it's another commercial space conference. This one's based in Las Cruces, New Mexico this year at the New Mexico Farm and Ranch Heritage Museum. So you can look it up, ISPCS 2019. The tickets, like most of these conferences, are not cheap unless you happen to be media or volunteer. I don't know if they're still looking for volunteers, but or if your company pays for you, that'd be great. So there's also some science conferences happening. There is so just give you key highlights. This one I found really cool. So this week actually started yesterday, October 2nd to 5th. Now this is international. So in Moscow, Russia, they're having a Venera-D landing sites and cloud habitability workshop, which basically means floating cities on Venus, guys. That's wonderful. I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so and then the 3rd through the 6th, there's a 38th International Meteor Conference. So these are science conferences I'm talking about in Beaumont, Germany. On October 7th through 11th, once again in Moscow, there's the 10th Moscow Solar System Symposium. 14th through 18th this month in Okinawa, Japan, there's a Planet 2 Rescue Symposium from protoplanetary disks through planetary system architecture to planetary atmospheres and habitability. Wow, that's a long name. And there's a number of other conferences. But some of these you can actually look up on the local Lunar and Planetary Institute website here in, which is also based here in Houston. Just go to hou.usra.edu/meetings/calendar. They also have talks of their own here, such as they have one tonight, actually, which unfortunately, for better or worse, is the same time as right now. So, okay then, which basically means if you're listening to that talk, you're not listening to me. So there's no point in me even promoting it, but just saying. But Lunar and Planetary Institute, okay, they have talks which frequently are not, coinciding with this. So check them out. All right. So that's that. I don't have a book for you today. I'm still reading the Aliens book, which is absolutely fascinating. I really recommend it. And unfortunately, I forgot to bring it this time, but I will. So, let's take perhaps a short little break. When we come back, let's jump into it. I wanted today to talk about, what NASA's offering for the commercial space industry, what the Chinese are doing, what SpaceX is doing, and what some other companies are doing. All right, so let's take a break. Cool.
Some of the other things you got going on.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. I feel like I'm in the presence of like celebrities. Y'all real fans to me.
It's just the shades, man. It's the shades.
So I think like 2000.
Put your money where your community is. Get in the action. Action 1. Independent thinkers working together. Inspiring action in media. Get in the action. Inspire today. Join us by being a sponsor at weareA1.com.
Growing up as a black kid in New Jersey, all I ever wanted to do was be a pro athlete. All of my role models were black athletes. And every time I would stare out the window and look at the sky and wonder what I'd be in the future, it always had to do with me catching some crazy football and scoring a touchdown. When it came to the point that I was told that I would not be able to play on an organized sports team for the rest of my life, it was something that I really didn't even know how to stomach in the moment. And I remember walking out of my cardiologist's office and just sitting in the hallway and breaking down for a few minutes just because it was something that I just couldn't plan for and couldn't account for. And I realized that in that moment, my entire life was going to be changed. And all of those dreams and hopes and aspirations that I had were going to go out of the window.
Action 1, Inspire Next.
Look up, because you never know what you will see. Hi, my name is Shen Ge, and I'm the host of SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show here in Houston.
All right, guys. So we are back. SG2 on Space, episode number 47, with your host Shen Ge. That's me. So, as noted here, let's just say facebook.com/The Shen Show, or you can watch us on YouTube as well. Just look for SG2 on Space. YouTube link is a little long, so hence why I'm not telling you. Here in the studio of Action One Media. So today's focus is on commercial space sector. If you have questions or commentary, feel free to put it up live on YouTube or Facebook, or call 713-489-9250. So I figure we'll start out by talking about what NASA recently announced. So, as I've mentioned here a bunch of times, NASA really wants to fly astronauts to the moon by the year 2024. That is 5 years from now, which is coming up. So, it needs landers to do it, though. It's not just getting to the moon, or rather the gateway, which is the space station that's going to be around the moon. You need a way to go from the space station to the moon and back, right? So, they have opened it up for commercial landers, commercial companies to propose that. So the U.S. agency on NASA on Monday, September 30th, announced that it's officially seeking proposals for commercial human-rated landers under its Artemis program. So this comes in the form of official solicitation for a human landing system that itself follows 2 draft versions released back in July and August. All right, and the deadline for all applications is November 1st. The first company to complete the lunar lander will be the one to land NASA astronauts on the moon in 2024. Pretty big deal. Now, second place gets a 2025 mission. So, cool. Either first or second, right? All right, without further ado, there's a video that will play on that screen over there that talks about this Artemis program a little bit. So, guess while that is being set up, I will suppose mention a few other things. Well, actually, let me see here. Okay. I guess taking a little bit of time. So that was one announcement by NASA. On the other side is the SpaceX announcement, which also occurred like earlier, a few days ago. So as you know, here in Texas, SpaceX is developing a Starship, which will basically enable humans to go to the moon and eventually to Mars, right? So SpaceX chief executive Elon Musk said the company would start test flights of its next generation Starship vehicle as soon as in 1 or 2 months, which is crazy, and reach its orbit in as little as 6 months. All right, so in less than half a year, we're gonna have the SpaceX Starship in the sky. All right, I'll talk more about this after I watch this little video. So, Artemis 1 progress. European service module that's being developed to be part of the Orion stage adapter. This is going to enable the Orion to actually be on top of the SLS, which is the Space Launch System. There's an internal cryogenic propulsion stage, which is going to enable propulsion for the Orion. Alright, so you can see there's a lot of things going on. And these are actual real footage, right? Which is cool. They're actually liquid oxygen tank. I've actually seen it okay. It's humongous. Engine section. Test firing engines. Solid rocket boosters. That would be part of the first stage. Well, on the sides, just 2 solid rocket boosters. Okay, so for more information, you can obviously go to nasa.gov/Artemis. That will tell you, way more information than this little video or the things I've said. So this doesn't focus specifically on the lunar lander aspect, but gives you a good overview of exactly, the other stuff that's going into it right now. So feel free to check it out. Okay. So, yeah. All right. With that, I'm gonna say that I was saying that SpaceX has been quite busy as well. So on September 28th, I was trying to think of the date which Elon Musk gave his presentation, but on September 28th, that's a date he he gave a little talk. So, the first Starship prototype called Mark 1 is currently being assembled. It's 50 meters tall. So how much is that in feet? Times 3 about. So 150 feet tall. So, you know, he basically gave a talk to media and employees and other guests in Brownsville, Texas. It's going to make a high altitude suborbital flight in the near future from the Texas site known as Poca Chica. Remember a few weeks ago, or a few episodes ago for you guys, we showed a little video of it going up and then coming back down, which was kind of cool. So this time it's not just going to be like a minute. It's going to go fly off way into the sky, 65,000 feet, in other words about 20 kilometers up, come back and land in about, you know, that's pretty cool, I gotta say. So after the 20-kilometer test flight, Elon said the company might move ahead directly to the orbital flight using a Starship prototype and a super heavy booster. So this one would be done with a new Mark III prototype, which that construction would start in about a month. So it's pretty darn cool. And so you're thinking, what about Mark II? Didn't we just skip one? Well, rest assured, there is a Mark II. So the company is currently building a Mark II in Cocoa, Florida, near Cape Canaveral, Florida. That should be done within a couple of months. Mark III vehicle would be done in about 3 months. So, yeah. And then after that, there would be a Mark IV and a Mark V prototype, which will closely follow Mark III. And I'm not sure if this is the best comment for someone to say, but he basically said, actually, this is going to sound totally nuts, but I think we want to try to reach orbit in less than 6 months. All right, he did not need to say this is going to sound totally nuts, but everything else I like. So reaching orbit in less than 6 months, great. If that can happen, wow, simply amazing. All right. So all these initial test flights will be uncrewed, so no human lives will be sacrificed. All right, that's good. However, the first human flight may take place as soon as next year. That is remarkably fast, considering that SpaceX has yet to fly people on the Crew Dragon spacecraft that's been developed for a number of years now for NASA. So on that talk, which not showing you here since it would take a while, feel free to watch it yourself. Just look up, Starship Talk Elon on YouTube or Google. You will find it. He also talked a lot about the technical discussions of the Starship architecture, including an explanation for why the company switched less than a year ago by using a version of the stainless steel called Type 301 for the structure of the vehicle. All right. So it does look kind of futuristic, like silvery, shiny. He said that steel is a better choice than lightweight carbon composites, which surprises me since, I'm not a material science person. So I always presume composites, right? That's what the future is for aerospace. However, apparently the stainless steel actually handles high temperatures better. So that reduces the need for the thermal protection system to lightweight ceramic tiles, hence saving mass. All right. So apparently a 301 stainless steel rocket is actually the lightest possible reusable architecture. So steel costs only about 2% that of carbon composite materials, actually. So it also saves them money. It leads me to wonder why, maybe this is something I need to do more research in, why actually composites would be considered better than, and what exactly are current spacecrafts made of? I mean, I'm sure there's composite materials since it doesn't all look like that steel metal case thing that the Starship looks like. So, there's obviously still a lot more to occur, and we will definitely see what happens. Now, NASA has not been terribly big advocate for this latest shift in priorities, let's just say. So, for instance, some people in NASA. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, he issued a brief statement on September 27th. He says, I am looking forward to the SpaceX announcement tomorrow. This was the day before Elon said it. In the meantime, commercial crew is years behind schedule. NASA expects to see the same level of enthusiasm focused on the investments of the American taxpayer. It is time to deliver. So in other words, hey, you're doing Starship stuff, cool, but you said you're going to provide a Crew Dragon vehicle, and that's been taking years, and we've been paying you, so what's going on? Okay, so SpaceX, Elon Musk basically responded, said that SpaceX is spending only a fraction of its overall resources on Starship, and that the primary resources are still overwhelmingly on Falcon and Dragon, all right? So, in any case, as always, of course, he said something quite inspirational, I think, in his conclusion to his 40-minute talk, which is, I think we should really do our very best to become a multi-planet species and to extend consciousness beyond Earth. And we should do it now. All right. I'm not going to go into this, but recently, actually, I had a talk with at a college reunion about a week ago, and over dinner, there was a talk on the priority of space exploration, particularly human spaceflight beyond Earth and settlement in other worlds. And I don't think the friends I had agreed with me on that this is a high priority. In any case, I will go into that another time. But point is, I agree. We have dawdled here on Earth for far too long, and it is time to go venture forth. So I don't think SpaceX is spending about 5% of the budget right now on the Starship, which I don't think it's that much. So, and if they can do it in such a tight time frame, kudos. We're looking forward to it. All right. On the other side of the world, besides the giant company SpaceX and what NASA's doing, looking for that, I'm going to talk briefly about some Chinese commercial companies, because it turns out so I mentioned a few of them in the past, like Landspace, OneSpace, and I forget one other one, but there's clearly more of them jumping in the fray. So recently, for instance, this company called Beijing Xinghe Dongli Space Technology Company, also known as Galactic Energy, which sounds pretty pretentious, last week carried out a successful 74-second hot fire test of the second stage for its first launch vehicle. So that's pretty cool. And they are going to do a maiden launch of the solid propellant Ceres CRERES-1 in March 2020. All right, so these are all really small launch vehicles, by the way. So, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, this one can launch 79 kilograms of payload. Multiply that by about 2. That'll give you about pounds. So what's that? About 180 pounds. All right. So this has 3 solid stages with a liquid upper stage. All right. Comparable to the Kuaizhou 1A, which is developed by Chinese defense contractor CASIC. All right. This company is also making progress on a RP-1, a liquid oxygen launch vehicle named Pallas-1, so PALLAS. That's capable of launching 4 metric tons to low Earth orbit, or 2 tons to sun synchronous orbit, but that's not going to be ready until the end of 2022. Oh yes, iSpace. I think I mentioned that. The last successful flight was iSpace, performing its first successful orbital launch by a Chinese private firm in July 2019. And Landspace and OneSpace are still trying. There's also another company called Space Trek, not Star Trek, Space Trek. So it will perform a test flight of a suborbital rocket, so it wouldn't reach orbit. Suborbital means you go past 100 kilometers, say, and then you come back down. All right. So that's going to launch from in the near future from a site in northwest China, and it got a bunch of money. So they're also looking to launch a multi-stage solid rocket by the end of next year, which will be orbital, I believe. Then there's Beijing Deep Blue Aerospace Technology, which announced Monday this week that they did a successful thrust chamber hot test for a kerosene liquid oxygen engine. So this is towards a state development of Nebula-1 and Nebula-2 light and medium lift launchers. All right. And there's at least 20 other ones, which I'm not going to go into, but suffice it to say, this industry is growing overseas as well, clearly. So the future looks pretty bright, I will say, at least for, all right. I figure the more, the better, all right? So especially, SpaceX could focus on the larger goals, say, the large companies like that, SpaceX or Blue Origin, say, or Boeing. Lockheed stuff, but for the smaller companies, focusing on the commercial satellite, especially small sat, is very wise. So for instance, another really cool company is called Relativity Space here, and they just raised $140 million recently. Actually, probably last week, since they announced it on October 1st. All right, so they raised $140 million, and this was a Series C funding led by two new investors. Now, this brings the total raise to $185 million. Okay, so it's going to be definitely enough funding for it to complete its Terran, Terran-1 rocket and begin commercial operations in 2021. And the first launch is going to be scheduled for late 2020, which was originally scheduled for late 2020, is now going to be planned for February 2021. So this is pretty darn cool. Relativity Space is fairly unique in that it uses 3D printed parts. So they're using 3D printed. They're basically, they say they're building the world's first 3D printed rocket from raw material flight, and they can do that in 60 days. In their perspective, they save money, they save time. All right. So let's see what happens. 3D printed rocket. Can you imagine that? Well, apparently Relativity Space can. So it's not just ground launch vehicles, right? Take you from Earth to space. There's also commercial companies working on in-space propulsion, startup companies. For instance, I'll just talk about one of them, Momentus, M-O-M-E-N-T-U-S. So a few weeks back, actually 2 weeks back, they announced success in in-orbit testing of water plasma propulsion and other key elements of its Vigoride space transportation vehicle. So Momentus CEO Mikhail Korkorich said, the on-orbit testing has demonstrated for the first time that microwave electrothermal plasma technology has the potential to achieve high specific impulse using water propellant. Water plasma propulsion is now technologically mature enough to be baseline for operational in-space transportation missions. What a mouthful. Okay, so what's next? For the next few months, Momentus is going to continue test firing its water plasma thrusters and performing in-space maneuvers on the El Camino Real spacecraft that was launched in July. So engineers will compare the results of the on-orbit testing with the results of the ground test to validate the company's models, right? So what is El Camino Real? Well, El Camino Real is a 16-unit CubeSat integrated by Astro Digital, which is a space manufacturer and geospatial data analysis firm based in Santa Clara, California. Astro Digital is another commercial space company. It's wonderful, the synergy between them, all right? So Momentus has raised more than $34 million for its campaign to develop Vigoride, V-I-G-O-R-I-D, and Vigoride Extended, shuttles that's going to move small satellites between orbits, okay, which is cool. All right, so one very interesting application of this is that, for instance, right now, a lot of these small satellites are not launched by dedicated small sat launch vehicles. So, in other words, they're not launched by Relativity Space or Rocket Lab, say, but instead they're launched on a secondary payloads on these really large launchers, like the traditional, say, Falcon rocket, or say one of the Indians' PSLV rockets. Okay, so they're launched as secondary payloads, and they end up being deposited wherever the primary payload will happen to be, or close to it. All right, so there's not that much control of its orbital height, altitude, or its basically what kind of orbit it is, right? But if you have a separate propulsion system for these satellites, for instance, what Momentus is developing, say if they have a Vigoride or Vigoride extended thruster attached to it, then regardless of where it's depositing its orbit, say it wants to raise its orbit, then you can use its own thruster to do that, which is cool. So, this company, Momentus, besides water plasma propulsion, it also provides, the Vigoride also has other systems. It can provide flight software, avionics, attitude sensors, microwave, and power systems. All right, which is cool. All right. Hopefully this works. So far, the on-orbit one seems to work for its prototype test demonstration, which is awesome. Looking forward to further tests in the future. All right. So, I must be talking extremely fast, since I presume we'll be on break for now. But let's continue. All right. So let's talk about worldview. Been talking about, rockets and stuff are cool, but what about balloons? You guys might think, oh, balloons, it's just people having a joyride. I mean, not joyride. I've never been a hot air balloon, right? But I think it'd be cool. All right. Point is, did you know that balloons could actually go up into space? Well, yes. Since a few weeks ago, or a previous episode, there was this random guy who decided to build up some stuff and launch it, and you heard how the sound changed, right? Like he had people record a sound, and it was funny how the voices changed, and eventually you couldn't hear anything because you're in the upper atmosphere where there's almost no air molecules. But it's not just for fun or for little science experiments or big science experiments. You can also launch like humans and stuff into space. So for instance, one company that's really doing that or thinking of launching platforms that could carry humans is Worldview. All right, literally world space view, VIEW. All right, so they have built a Stratolat platform, and recently they're still testing it. So the uncrewed Stratolat platform, built by Arizona-based Worldview Enterprises, stayed aloft for 32 days on its latest test flight. All right. This doubled the balloon's previous duration period, which was set like this past June, actually. So which is really interesting. All right. So what is Stratolite? Why do they name that? Well, it's a combination of stratosphere and satellite. All right. So this is a balloon's envision role, the company's envision role, to give customers a long-term bird's eye view of large patches of ground. All right. So it can host a variety of payloads and is operating to full navigational control. So it's not just a balloon that's going to idly float there, all right? Which is really interesting, all right? So the company is going to plan out to launch multiple missions in the future. So focus on demonstrating, for instance, optical imaging and optical imaging, synthetic aperture radar (SAR) sensing systems. Which would be cool. So this would be for for scientific or remote sensing, whatever, these kinds of purposes, right? Which in a way is similar to what a small satellite would be doing, except it's a balloon. But they're also developing a crewed balloon system called Voyager, which is designed to give customers long looks at Earth from about 100,000 feet, which is like about 30 kilometers up, 30.5 kilometers up, which is 3 times higher than commercial airliners, all right, which is pretty darn cool. And this is going to be much cheaper than a rocket, all right. So maybe you don't have to be a millionaire to take one of these flights, which would be really cool. I'd be willing to do it. Of course, this is still not in space. It's a balloon, so it needs an atmosphere. So, but you get pretty high up, which is kind of cool. So been. Lastly, I want to talk about, before we go on break, a company called Swarm. So Swarm had some issues a little while back because it launched a bunch of satellites, and without any FCC approval, Federal Communications Commission, right? Which they said, oh my gosh, why did you do that? So they got slapped with a $900,000 fine, which is a lot for a small company, all right? So now they hire some regulatory experts, worked with the FCC, so now they're cool. So anyways, essentially what happened back in 2018 is that FCC denied them a license for launch, and then they did it anyway, or something like that. So, which is kind of funny, except you get slapped with like almost $1 million fine, which is not funny. All right, so Swarm co-founders, CEO Sarah Spangelo, and Chief Technology Officer (CTO) Ben Longmire, they're pretty optimistic FCC will go ahead and grant their license. All right, so what exactly are they doing? Well, they have 150 satellites, and they're gonna be able to support as many as 10 million devices. So basically, for machine-to-machine connectivity. Okay, now. How do people access the network? So, oh, by the way, these are very low data rates. Okay, so Swarm plans to offer customer data rates of just 1 kilobyte per second initially, which can rise eventually to 2.7 kilobytes per second. That doesn't sound like a lot, but global coverage is a good thing, and it's at least enough to move a bunch of text messages. So to access this network, Swarm customers will purchase a radio frequency modem that's about half the size of a smartphone, which is great, half the size of this. It's going to integrate in their own devices, or they can buy Swarm's waterproof trackers that has a built-in modem, antenna, USB port. All right. So this is going to be kind of cool, and they have attracted more than 200 potential customers, ranging from Smart Mobility subsidiary to Aclima, San Francisco startup that produces hyperlocal air quality data. Okay, and there's a bunch of other ones, so you can, which is pretty cool. All right, so other from the government perspective is interesting. So one application, for instance, is that Swarm is preparing to send a ground station and handheld trackers, their trackers, to Antarctica. So if you're in Antarctica, you want to communicate, maybe via text message or something. I don't think that data rate could do phone calls. You can with the Swarm satellite and their tracker device. So, which is kind of cool. Can you imagine that? But anyways, that's all cool. These are really small satellites, by the way. They're like 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So, once again, the growth of small satellite industry, right? All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the most exciting things, which is not commercial space. It's beyond commercial space. Totally. Beyond. It's out there. All right, take a break.
One live pop-up celebrating African Fashion Week, and we are at the Art, Wine, and Culture event right now. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Inkem.
That's right.
And he is the president and CEO of African Fashion Week Houston.
Action 1, inspiring action.
Look up, because you never know what you will see. Hi, my name is Shen Ge, and I'm the host of SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show here in Houston, with Action 1 Media Group's support every Thursday night. So, my goal here is to educate the public in terms of space science, space flight, physics, astronomy, etc. You know, all that cool jazz, and occasionally about aliens as well. So STEAM education, science, technology, engineering, arts, since that's part of the creative aspect, and mathematics is very important to me. And I feel like Action One Media's goal is aligned with mine. So together, we hope to encourage the knowledge and especially the passion and interest in outer space in our Houston community. Tune in to SG2 on Space on Thursdays at 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Look up, because you never know what you will see.
Man, you still here? Go on and subscribe.
Get into action. Yo, we back at it again, baby.
What?
Get into action.
3.
Get into action.
Tell me what is the deal, tell me what is the deal.
So I challenge you today to start strong.
Get into action.
Tell me what is the deal. Cause I'm calling for you.
Get into action.
Can you feel that? See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that? See, I'm calling for you. Can you feel that? See, I'm calling for you. Say how you really.
All right, we are back. And apparently, I'm being told not to scream. So let's tone down my excitement a little bit, right? The reason I'm excited, 2 reasons. One, as always, is because of aliens. This is like my favorite segment. I have to talk about aliens. Otherwise, the world's not going right. The second thing is, apparently, a little while back, I told you guys that I came out with a space poetry book, right? And now it's going to be interviewed on a local radio station here in Houston, KPFT 90.1, specifically the program called Living Art, which interviews local creatives here in Houston. And it turns out that that day was unfortunately unavailable, so we had to reschedule. So just got a new date for you guys. It is going to be on October 24th. All right, so October 24th, 2019. That is also going to be a Thursday. In fact, it's pretty much going to be right before this show, or pretty close to it. So at 6 p.m., I'm presuming, on October 24th, I'm going to be reading a few poems and getting interviewed on the poetry I wrote, which is called Requiem, The Space Between Words by Shen Ge. Me. All right. So, which you can find on Amazon. But anyhow, that aside, and this is thanks to my friend Bucky, who is also a poet and a teacher, actually, and his co-host. So, wonderful. All right, can't wait. All right, now, what about the stuff about aliens, right? Well, recently, the Navy has just decided to cave in. Maybe I shouldn't use that word. They have basically stated, hey, you know that video which was released to the public and which, ex Blink-182 singer Tom DeLonge said was aliens and all, which I will go into him in a little bit because it's funny, I think, that he founded this aerospace company that, looks into aliens and stuff like that. But anyways, but they just confirmed that's a real footage. It's not doctored up. They say, yes, these pilots saw something real and we're not kidding. I mean, it's not their hallucination. It's not an equipment glitch. There is some flying object. We don't know what it is. Now, they don't like to use the word UFO because then it seems to imply, okay, aliens. Now, the Navy is not saying, hey, we're talking about aliens. The Navy is saying there is something legitimate that we don't know that these Navy pilots saw, okay? And why not play a short video?
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots to the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Pretty amazing, actually.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating. Nickel 6-1 Tango Logic, over. Oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting as soon as did you box moving target? 02. No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at the fly!
You know, they don't seem very scared at all, actually. So they're like, what the hell? What the heck is that thing, right? But you know, that's kind of cool that the Navy admitted it. So they don't like to use the word UFO. The Navy prefers the word unidentified aerial phenomenon, which to me sounds about the same. UAPs, I don't know. If I say, hey, there was a UAP there, would you know what I'm talking about? Okay, not really. It's basically the same thing, all right? So unidentified aerial phenomenon. What could it be? It could be secret aircraft being developed by some foreign nation or our government, or aliens. That seems to be the only two possibilities in my view. If it's considering that it's not a hallucination, the Navy admitted, not a hallucination and not an equipment glitch. So, yeah, you know. Okay, so in any case, now who was the one who released this? As I was mentioning before we saw that video, the Tom, I don't know if I ever say his name right, Tom DeLonge. You know, I used to listen to some Blink-182 back in the day. I think most of us did. His voice is so annoying, but thinking about it, but I still listen to it occasionally, actually. So I don't know. Point is, so he left the band, right? This guy, and he's always been into UFOs, and he started this company called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, which is a really long name. And in some ways, it sounds like they do a lot. According to DeLonge, he says this is a revolutionary collaboration between academia, industry, and pop culture. I believe he adds the pop culture element to advance society's understanding of scientific phenomenon and its technological implications. So last year, they are the ones who released a video that you just saw showing encounter between U.S. Navy aircraft and UFOs. All right. And by the way, that was a clip taken in 2015 off the East Coast by F-18 fighter jet. All right. So how did they get this? Apparently, there's something called Freedom of Information Act. So you can request that from the U.S. government. I don't know if you can get all kinds of documents with that, but apparently they got this one. They have released another video capturing a similar shaped UFO flight. This was taken off the coast of California in 2004 by pilots flying from an aircraft carrier, USS Nimitz. All right. So far, they have not seen any aliens yet, but they have found something really weird, or acquired. So apparently, they announced in mid-July, that they have acquired metamaterials of unknown origin. So the metals are reported to be from advanced aerospace vehicle with structure and composition not known from any existing military or commercial vehicle. This is according to Steve Justice, who is the COO, Chief Operating Officer of To the Stars. And he's also a former head of advanced systems at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, which is basically their what do you call it? Skunk, how should I describe it? It's like where they do a lot of high-tech stuff, all right? It's like a research and development segment of Lockheed Martin. So legit, right? I mean, To the Stars apparently has some, I think their CTO or somebody is from the CIA and has like 30 years of experience from there. So, you know, it's not just a Blink-182 musician, singer, all right? So they have legit clout, experienced folks, all right? So Justice further said They have been collecting from sources with various levels of chain of custody documentation. So we're focusing on verifiable facts and working to develop independent scientific proof of the material's properties and attributes. In some cases, the manufacturing technology required to fabricate this material is only now becoming available, but the material has been in documented possession since the mid-1990s. We currently have multiple material samples being analyzed by contracted laboratories and have plans to extend the scope of this study. So, all right. Now, that press release back in July doesn't say much about the actual technical details of these metal materials. So, you know, that's interesting to note, right? Let's see what they come up with. I mean, who knows? Who knows what it might be? You know, this actually reminds me. I think I may have mentioned this a while back, and I need to dig back into my memory or some document. There was this artifact that was discovered a while ago, which was definitely kind of alien origin, and it was extremely dense and could roll around its own, and it made doors open and do weird things. All right, and it was owned by this family for a while until the U.S. government confiscated it. But that one also had, like, that object had some weird material that nobody knew what it was and how they made it. So, strange things are happening, guys. All right. Okay, so if you want to check out their website, you can go to, dpo.tothestarsacademy.com, all right, where I'm sure you can find out more about these videos and these other stuff, right? Okay, with that, I think we have to draw to a close here. Now, Facebook.com/The Shen Show. Once again, Action One Media, right? www.weara1.com. I did forget to mention, if you guys want to support me, because this is not free, using the space and doing the post-production, you can support me at patreon.com/SG2OnSpace. SG2, 2 as in number 2, on space. And got a couple different tiers, which for the sake of time I'm not going to go into, but suffice to say you can donate as little as $1 a month or as much as $60 a month. All right, so just take your pick. All right, take care, everybody. And what's the catchphrase? Look up, because you never know what you will see. All right, good night, everybody.
Peace, brother Atum Ra, and you tuned in to Action One Network.